Let's go ahead and call our City Council meeting to order for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. Let the record show that all members of the City Council are present, as well as members of the city staff. We have our City Administrator, Mr. Brooks, joining us via WebEx, and we also have members of the public here tonight. I've asked Councilor Arnold if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everyone please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We'll now have a moment of silence. If you would please, during your moment of silence, keep in mind our first responders and public safety departments that help to protect all those that come into our city. Also, please keep the members of the City Council in mind as we make decisions tonight on behalf of the residents. Thank you. We now have a time for public comment. This is an opportunity to address the City Council regarding any concerns or ideas that you might have. No action will be taken during the public comment time. If you do come to the mic, please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please state your name and the city in which you reside. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations and reports. I don't have anything for the mayor's report. We'll move on to city administration report, and we will give Mr. Brooks a moment.
Thank you, Mayor. And I apologize for my absence there. This was a kind of a surprise for me as well as everybody else, but we've handled it fine. So the department reports are in your packets. I don't know if you had any questions or comments on any of those. The one thing that I would point out is that, again, our sales tax continues to outpace last year. We're slightly ahead each month, so that's always a good sign if it continues at this pace. If you noticed in the anniversaries there, I'm going to come back to one of them, but we had a number of them there with a lot of years. There's some typos on both Scott Brinkman's and Casey Warren's. They said 23 years and 18 respectively, and I think it's more down around 15 and 14 there. I don't want them getting any weird ideas that they've got their 20 years in, so I'm not giving them that credit for that. And then Mike, Mr. Eggett's actually on there for 9. But there was one on there that I asked Chief Shawley if he wouldn't just give us some extra comments on that. Paul Flagg has reached 39 years with the city, and so I believe Chief Shawley's there. If he could maybe just add a few comments, I think that's worthy of a few additional comments than what we normally do in recognition for that. So we could just give him a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's got me by 10 years. That's a long time. Paul came to us in '83 as a volunteer. So he was at the 700 West Fire Station, and his dad previously to that was one of the charter members in Riverdale Fire Department. So he came in about '62 is when his dad started with the charter members. So Paul's been around a long time. He's seen all the development, all the growth. He's watched the fire department go from a very small volunteer department to where we are today and everything in between. And he's always been able to maintain his certifications, which is challenging throughout the years. He's been asked to do a lot of things. As he was a volunteer, they didn't require EMT and they didn't require all those things. And now with the requirements of today, he's had to keep up with all that throughout the years, and that's a challenge for sure. And he's been able to accomplish that. So he's got the big mustache with a big smile. He's our PR guy. So it's a great thing to have Paul Flagg in our department. So
plus he's a Riverdale resident.
He is. He's a Riverdale resident.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief Shelley. Our FTEs remains below our authorization. And really, that's pretty much it, unless you guys had any questions on any of the reports or anything. I did ask Mike just to briefly mention a couple of things. So as far as community development project, if you don't have any comments or questions on the other stuff, we'll just let him say a couple little quick comments.
Just reviewing what's in your packet a little bit. Spark Studio Hair Salon is open for business, so if anybody needs a haircut, there's a good place to go. Maverick is moving along really aggressively, as you've probably seen. It's amazing how quick that site is transforming. It's impressive. They definitely know how to get things going. Very impressive. Cheddar's, the site is pretty much all but almost cleared, don't you think, Sean?
The building base is built as far as the dirt, the building, and the groundwork for the buildings there.
So it's ready for construction of the actual site. So that's good. Site's prepared and ready to go. J-Dogs, I did talk to the owner of that. They are working on getting in their documentation to Michelle for their business licensure, and that will go in next to the Starbucks there on the corner. Two huge recyclery open this week, either yesterday or today. So they're open for business there on 900 if you know someone who likes to cycle. Sounds like it's pretty good shop from what Randy was saying. It's really nice inside. And they also have a Facebook presence. So if you're curious about them and want to look them up. They also obviously have that other location in South Ogden. Is that right, Michelle?
I think they might have moved here.
Oh, is that maybe just a relocation from their other site? Okay. And then the Chick-fil-A remodel / rerouting is still going forward. I don't know what the delay is. I recently talked to the designer engineer group for that. He said they might request a 6-month extension on their approval from the Planning Commission in the coming months. I don't know if that means they're just kind of going to ride out the summer because they do really well in the summer, and they're going to kind of maybe do work in the fall before the holiday, kind of time it just right, or what. But I think they're trying to figure out their calendaring schedule. But it is still happening. So don't lose faith. It's just, I think when they think it'll be the best for them to do so is when they'll move forward with it. Everything's lined up. All their permitting's done for that. Then the last thing I wanted to note is the Farmers Insurance Building on Riverdale Road. You'll start to see that being demolished probably sometime this week. You'll start to see that. So that will probably go pretty quickly. Well, depending on what they find on the site. Demolitions are always a little interesting in that area of Riverdale Road. So with that, that's pretty much everything, unless there's any other questions of something I missed. So that's all I have to report. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. And Mayor, I didn't have anything further. That's it from staff.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We did want to give just a minute to Councilor Hanson to report on the Youth City Council.
I met recently with the Youth City Council. Sorry. They had their Easter egg hunt this last Saturday. They did a great job. I think they had at least 8 youth running the event, and then maybe 2 staff kind of helping out from the recreation center, and they had a big turnout. Some great donations from Walmart for prizes and baskets, and it was a lot of fun. And Rich is in the process of kind of revamping his plan for next year and for the youth council. Seems like he may want to shift it back to a mayor council type organization, so we may have some more opportunity to interact with them on that level. So they're doing great.
Good. Well, thank you. We appreciate you representing us with that group, and we know you have some experience in that, and so share your valuable experience. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move on to consent items. Number 1, consideration to approve the meeting minutes from the April 5th, 2022 council work session and also the council meeting. Is there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. We'll now move on to consent item number 2. This is setting 4 separate public hearings. We'll do them one by one. The first one is a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding adoption of the final Riverdale City budget for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Any discussion about setting this public hearing? If not, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next one is a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding amending the final Riverdale City budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Any questions or comments about this public hearing? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
So moved.
That's a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Next one's a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding the proposed amendments to the Riverdale City Code Human Resources Manual referred to in 1-7-1, 1-7-2 salaries of the City Council and Mayor, and 1-7F-6 salary of the Justice Court Judge. Any questions or comments about this public hearing? If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so last year, I believe we split out the mayor, city council from the judge. Is that going to be the same?
Can you repeat that again? I couldn't. It's a little bit hard if you're not talking into your mics for me to hear.
His mic's off.
Last year, we split out the salary increase for the mayor and council, split that out from the judge. Can we do that again?
It doesn't matter to me. Generally, when I draft that one up, because I don't know what you guys are going to do on your salary, is we draft it both ways. We'll draft your salary up as if it would happen under the usual process, and I also draft up one where you don't take any salary increase. So we have both available when we walk in there, but we can split them all out separately. It doesn't
I
really
don't know
matter.
if it matters in the public hearing sense, but if it, when we take a vote, I'd hate to deny the judge his raise, but I will deny the vote against the council raise.
Okay, that's good. So, Mr. Brooks, let's do the public hearing, but if you could prepare that with them separate, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Thank you. So we would need a motion to approve this public hearing.
You had the motions. That was the
Oh.
motion comment.
Oh, that was the comment. That's right. We have a motion or a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. That is 4 in favor, and that is Counselor Stevens with the nay, correct? Everybody else, okay. All right, the fourth one is a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding the non-reciprocal interfund activity transfer of resources utilized by the city's general fund as provided by the city's water fund. Any questions or comments on this public hearing? Seeing none, we'd need a motion to approve it.
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion on this one? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That one is unanimous. Thank you for getting those consent items done so quickly. We'll now move on to action items. The first one is a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding proposed annexation plat. That's the America First Credit Union Riverdale LaFleur property. So we need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need to poll the council on that?
Just on the resolution.
Okay. All right. All in
Yeah,
favor,
I would pull them.
poll them to open the
Yes.
public hearing. Okay. Poll the council, please.
Councilor Arnold?
Aye.
Councilor Hanson?
Aye.
Councilor Merrill?
Aye.
Councilor Hilton?
Aye.
Councilor Stevens?
Aye.
All right. The public hearing is now open. The time is yours for comments on the annexation plat. Seeing no comments, we'd need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Maragoni, will you poll the council, please?
Councilor Hilton?
Aye.
Councilor Hanson?
Aye.
Councilor Arnold?
Aye.
Councilor Stevens?
Aye.
Councilor Merrill?
Okay, public hearing is now closed. We'll move on to action item number 1B, consideration of ordinance number 948 to approve the proposed annexation plat for the America First Credit Union / Riverdale LaFleur property as submitted by America First Credit Union and AWA Engineering. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. And I won't belabor this one. Like I said, we've talked about it a lot, but I did want to point out that representing America First interest in this property is Ms. Nichols, who's present. If you have any questions for her on behalf of AWA Engineering and representing AFCU. I don't think there's anybody else here from AFCU. Okay. So if you have any questions beyond what we've already talked about, please feel free to have her answer what she's able to. That being said, this did come before the Planning Commission per City Code on March 22nd. A recommendation for approval was submitted by the Planning Commission with a recommendation to establish the zoning as M1 light manufacturing zoning, which matches surrounding properties, and the general plan supports that. This is in compliance with state codes found in 10-2 with the 400 series regarding annexations and the plat request. And the public hearing requirements have been fulfilled per that series of state code. And with that, the documentation is shown in your packet, and the plat submittal with the ordinance is also therein shown. And I would defer to the council if you have any other questions for me or for the applicant group. Thank
Are
you.
there any questions or comments?
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve ordinance 949. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Any?
949?
Did he say 949?
Oh, sorry, 948. Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Ordinance 949, this is the proposed annexation plat. Ordinance 948. Yes, we have a motion and a second. Everybody agrees with that? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Arnold.
Scare me.
Rock and roll. He got ahead, his eyes moved.
Yeah, I love rock and roll.
No, thank you. I'm glad to have him here helping me stay on track. So, very good. Okay, that does pass unanimously. All right, action item number 2, consideration of our ordinance 949, making amendments to Title 8 of the Riverdale City Municipal Code, specifically Chapter 6, regarding changes concerning the conveyance of water rights to the city on new development. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, before you get started, could I say something quickly?
Yeah.
On this, as you go into that, we notified you on Friday when we set that packet out that the attachment would be changed, because at that time Sean was off on Friday. We didn't have a chance. I wanted to get this in and done to try and move this along. It's been sitting out there for a long time, but I wouldn't have had a chance to talk to him until Monday. So we met on Monday. We discussed some changes, and they weren't huge changes, but there were some, and there was some language that I inserted in there that I don't know that it helps Alan, but it kind of goes down that same path on some of the comments that he made earlier. But what we want you to do, it's the ordinance is still the same, 949, but the attachment is that one that was sent out to you on Monday. And in that, and this was the language that I added in there, I in one of those paragraphs, it states that the city's #1 priority is water shares. And I followed that up with a statement that future developments could be denied based on that. Just to put that emphasis in there that when we sit down and negotiate these things, we go into those negotiations with that purpose. And, we can't drink money, and so that doesn't do us a whole lot of good, but it at least gives you some comfort that that's the emphasis that we place on that, if that helps you out at all, Alan, on that. But it is the second attachment that we sent out to you on Monday. That's one we want you to consider.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Douglas?
So as we've talked about earlier, the main goal of this ordinance is to make sure that when somebody comes in, they bring an adequate amount of water to cover their usage, and to make sure that they're not burdening the existing system or putting a burden back on the existing residents. It's not like we're going to put that cost back on them. I've worked with Hanson and Luce for the last month and a half on this, and in my mind, they're probably a leading expert in this area in the state. And they feel like the numbers that we're at right now make it so that it's fair for a developer, but also very fair for the city, that we're not going to lose anything, but we're not being excessive. So I feel like the numbers we have on there are good. I know Alan has a concern with sharing the water, and I don't have a goal to share that, to sell the water going forward. But that doesn't tie somebody else, in the future from selling water. So I guess that would be in your hands to decide what you want to do there. I do know that Brad and them are looking to try and buy some that at the time we thought we had extra. But that would be dependent on what you do with this ordinance, if that's even available for them to do. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Any questions? Counselor Arnold?
So I'll just go on the record. I mean, I have full faith in you guys and your negotiations and all that kind of stuff, but you can't see the future, just like you cannot see this year.
For sure.
You can't see next year and all that kind of stuff. And it really concerns me to put a cash value, especially if it's not I don't know, 130% of, the value of the water or something like that, because we don't know what it's going up. And so I'm in favor, and the share amounts and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all, but I really do have a problem given when somebody comes in and says, we want to develop, and we say we don't have the water, and then somebody comes in and says, Joey, we do have the water for you. We're just going to get ourselves in trouble. And I think putting an ordinance together that actually states that, it's at the city's discretion to this dog won't bite you, but it will bite you kind of thing. I mean, I'm talking right to you, but I'm just talking.
No, I'm
Yeah.
on board with where you're at. I get it.
But I think putting a cash basis on there is just a real bad idea. And so I would propose that we take the cash out. So if somebody wants to develop, they come with water. Water's something that we've talked about. My time on the council has just been crazy how many times you've brought in the water situation and where we're looking in the future. And and even with Weaver Basin Water, it's not like we control the water. I mean, when they're coming in and saying we're dropping you 60% this year and 10% inside water, we don't have that. And to put an ordinance together to where, I mean, we're handicapping you as much as we're, possibly getting us problems. And I think it's a great ordinance, but I would like to take the cash basis out of it.
Honestly, it makes it easy for me.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
Counselor Stevens,
I'm
sure, go
trying to
ahead.
ascertain here, who is the decision maker on that cash, or is it the council? Because I'm not seeing.
It just says the city.
Yeah, and so it needs to be clarified as to, if we do keep the cash, there needs to be at least a criteria and who the authority is. It should be the council, but of who can make that determination if that is an option.
Mr. Brooks, it does say, and I'm just reading it to him, Counselor Stevens, I'm not taking a side on this,
Right.
but it says, the city may, if it determines there is excess water, accept cash or a combination of cash and water. So you're saying that you would like it to say the city council?
Or the
governing
it
body
doesn't-
or-
What is the city?
Yeah,
Is that Mr. Douglas? Is that Mr.
Sure.
Is that the mayor? It needs to be specified, because just saying the city is too ambiguous.
I agree with that. I think it's ambiguous to just say the city, right?
sure. Counselor Arnold?
Well, and we've had people on the council that have had interests in developing, just like we have right now with the RDA and the money over there, behind Maverick. I mean, we have pressure to say, hey, we want this developed because it benefits me, and I hate that. I mean, water is, of anything that we do, I mean, with public works, I mean, water's a big one. And I would like to tie people's hands and say, you know what, the city needs water, and if they can't develop because they don't have the water, I mean, they're not. Matter of fact, I mean, I know we have one house that's being built, and they didn't realize that they didn't have any water, and so they're not getting water, right? So they're kind of at a standstill. I mean, you're familiar with
I'm not familiar with
is
that.
it on South Weaver Drive? The house that's being built right there, they didn't have any. They're trying to get water from Ernie,
They probably are.
try and slide it, but they don't have any right now. And I mean, it's a big deal, and I hate the thought of. I mean, like the motor view, Coleman. Everybody knows Coleman's got it's a burr under my saddle, right? And they come in and they 10 acres, they develop, they land, or what is it, land lots, or not land lots, paper lots. That the guy came in, bought the land, made the paper lots, sold them to Richmond American Home. I think it even sold twice, but Richmond American Homes ends up with it, and we live with it. And then they go, and then, you know, they worry about the water that's being used there. And I just think to have someone come in that has cash and they can do it or whatever, I just, you know, it puts us in the bind with water, because it doesn't necessarily guarantee us water, because we have the money to buy water if we need to.
Mayor?
Yeah, Counselor Hanson.
Although I feel like this language is representative of almost every water system that I know of, I wouldn't be opposed to removing that first few sentences that says that we allow cash right now. And then if somehow we have a miraculous turnaround from the drought conditions, it's something that Sean could always bring back to us to add in, because that language is standard and it's something we could easily put back in if our conditions changed in the future.
The other thing that could change in the future is we do have some more underground water shares that we don't utilize right now because we can't pump them, right? So if for some reason that situation changed, then you might have some shares there. But yeah, whatever you think's in best interest of the city, I'm fine with that. So.
Can I say something, Mayor?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to influence you, because I agree. And, you know, Sean and I have had these discussions with a number of developers lately, and it's quite uncomfortable. The only concern I have is I hate to take it out, because there's an old saying, never make a law you can't live with. If we take it out, and this is what I expressed to Sean, we strap ourselves. And so let's say something comes up like the Bach development, where somebody comes in and they can't come up with all the water shares, but they can come up with quite a few of them. And we want to look at an opportunity to finish the park. If there's not something in there that allows us to do that, then our hands are completely tied. And that's the one concern I have. And as a follow-up to that, it worries me a little bit from a legal standpoint, because in effect what this is basically an impact fee. You're going to have to bring water to develop in the city. We haven't jumped through those hoops to do that. So I'm probably more concerned about that aspect of it than anything. And then coupled with the fact that our hands are so tied, that was one of the reasons why I pushed a little bit harder to keep something in there, so that we had a little bit of wiggle room if something weird came up like a Bach home development. And I'm not saying that's what we would do, but it's a good example to look at, that if you don't have any options there, then that wouldn't even be an option for you to do that if you wanted to get creative, kind of thing. So that's all I have to say. And I'm like Sean, I don't care what you do. I mean, it would be easier for us, but I think those are a couple points you need to consider.
One thing is, as I read it, I mean, it says the city may, if it determines there is excess water, accept cash. So that kind of limits us a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, right now we say there's no excess water, so we can accept cash, at least the way I read this.
I would agree. Right now, we're like I said, we're taking a decrease of, so the water rights that we have with Weber Basin this year, the ones that we use for outside watering, they're deducting us by 60%. Our total overall, they're taking 10% out. And they just don't, it's not that they're taking it, they have no water to deliver to us. I mean, the water's just not there. And so that's the reduction that we will live with this summer and through the fall, unless the spring runoff comes off just perfect. I mean, if we had everything go great, they might fill another reservoir or two, you know, that they're not expecting to if everything went perfect. And they won't know that till June or whatnot. But we talked with them as late as Friday, and this is still the restriction that we're under for the summer as of Friday.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But with the two things that I want to bring out, one, when was the last time you felt comfortable with water? That we were just, because I mean, I've been on the council when you've talked about we're charging for water and we're making money on water, but you were, I mean, so that's 10 years that I've been around.
I'm never comfortable with water because I don't have control over it. I mean, I don't know how much snow I'm gonna get. I don't know how long the well's gonna pump this year. It's just,
But a decision.
I wake up in the middle of the night wondering where am I get water for this summer. I mean, honestly, that's what happens right now. And like, The first thing when I
occupational
get to work with the assistant director, first thing we talk about, what are we going to do about the water this summer? Because it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, there's no doubt about
But
it.
as we look at that, we're making decisions today. Once you sell the water, allow the water, somebody comes in, they give you money, I mean, my dad told me don't sell land and guns, Once they're gone, and so I just have a problem taking cash for something you can never get back. And so I have a place up at Bear Lake in St. Charles City. They just approved like a 200 lot subdivision, gave them no water. So, I mean, it's up to them to drill a well and provide water. So if that developer comes through, I mean, he's got to get creative with what they're doing. So money's cheap and water's expensive, so I'm a fan of that, so.
Counselor Hilton?
I think that I see the excuse in there, Councilman Arnold is worried about that the clause in there that says if we determine we have excess water kind of lets us off the hook. You thought at the time that you made that commitment to that
I
apartment
can't
builder.
commit to him because I don't have, I mean, the ordinance refers to
Implied a commitment to him. You thought you had excess water. You followed your instincts there. For the next developer, you won't think that, most likely, not for a while. So, and I wonder if, Alan, you mentioned if the price we charged was some forward-thinking price, 130%, I think is what you mentioned. Does that cover us? Can we leave the negotiability in here and still make ourselves whole reasonably by charging that much money?
You would take out they wouldn't come to us as frequently wanting to buy water, because if I can find water in the open market, it costs me $45,000 a share, and the city's going to charge me $65,000 a share. What are they going to do? You would still be in a bind, if they had super deep pockets, but we would still fall back on if we feel like we have excess water at that time,
Yep.
right?
Yep, but at least gives you that flexibility.
And it should let us for the next few years, even with some inflation, to have the money to replace them shares on the open market, hopefully. So
And you're basing it on essentially retail price, the highest typical price, and if we bump that up a bit, I think that's at least reasonably assures ourselves to be whole until we can next buy water. So essentially what we're doing is taking cash and buying the water for them. That's what you've been doing. So it's not like we put it in our pockets or build a park with it or anything. You're basically
But
buying
it's
water.
rare.
Yeah, it's rare.
I mean, he's saying it's rare to get the water shares. I mean, it's not.
Oh, sure.
It's not something that you just go buy it.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Sean, but can you go buy water today if you're willing to pay for it?
no,
It's not available. Nobody's
I
selling.
don't know of a share that's available today as of this morning, at least on the sources that I checked.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I don't know. Like I said, over the last 6 months, we've probably helped them find close to, with what they've found and what we've helped them find, we've found 20 to 30 shares in the last 6 months as a group. Like they have people out there searching. I tell them when I see something. Some of them have had extra and they tell me about it, and I'll tell a different developer. So we've kind of, we've manipulated around, but I haven't bought any, but we have found roughly 20 to 30 shares in that last.
Do any of the brokers still have shares that they're just upcharging for?
And I don't
Hard to
deal with
know.
the brokerage, so I don't know. I mean, several of the developers have hired brokerages, but they haven't had available shares. They had to search them out for them.
Counselor Stevens?
Yeah, you talk about the brokerage. I mean, you're being a nice guy. That's over and above your duties, and it's their responsibility. I'm not sure we need to be in. I mean, you're doing it because you have your finger on the pulse, and you might know and hear and be able to read the tea leaves a little bit, but. I don't see that's where you just, no, we shouldn't be in that business. Now, granted, I get where you're coming from, but that's what they have brokers for.
We just don't feel like, as city staff that if I know there's shares out there and we have a developer that has a plan on the table, that I can go out and buy the shares in from. That's just my personal take on it. You can tell me to do something else.
No,
But I feel like if there's somebody that's actually has a development that they're going to bring something good to Riverdale, they're bringing something that you guys are looking to approve, and I know there's shares, I don't feel like I should step in front of them and buy them for the city. If I just tell them about them, they buy them, we get them back anyway, so it's kind of the same scenario.
okay, let me just play devil's advocate with you. And I get where you're coming from, because it's a win-win, what you're doing. I get it. But right now, it's not, you can only do what's, if there's something available. We can't be tying the city's hands if we get into a struggle situation like we are right now. It just doesn't work. So granted, I get it for the win-win. That's all.
Councilor Arnold?
So two things. One, how did Coleman work? So they bought the land, did the paper lots,
They got the water shares.
got the water shares, sold them to Weber Basin Water, and sold the property to, ended up being Richmond American Homes. So they bought it for $800,000. However, I don't know how many water shares they had, but
And I don't know a number, but I know they had Davis Weber shares that they got from
so
Coleman's.
they're just giggling away, and we were, because what I'm thinking. So what I'm thinking is, the second thing is, if we have, like a hard line, we have this many water shares with this much development, and then they say, you're in the mix, whatever you see water shares, whether we buy them and sell them to them to give to us, but we don't ever give our water away.
We can't. State law does not. Once we purchase water, we keep it forever.
Well, I know, but we're saying we, what was it? If we have excess water, then we're okay, which takes our market share per resident, per user down. So if we have a hard line and say for every user we do, I mean, if we help them, that's great. I mean, you go, hey, the city bought them. So, I mean, if we establish that line, am I making sense? We
You
establish a
want a
line.
baseline of where we're at with water shares, and anything new would have to be above that.
Yeah, so if you bought them and then you said, okay, we can get, you buy them instead of for the city, we give them to the developer, not give them, sell them to the developer, then he gives them to us, he develops, we've established a new baseline, so whatever we add, but we can do it in conjunction with a developer or something like that. I mean,
So just to be clear, so the way this ordinance is written, we don't ever, even with the cash in lieu of, it's not that we're selling them the share. We're selling them the usage of the share to meet their demand. It's just kind of like what Weber Basin does to us. We go get water from them. We never own the water right. We own a contracted amount of water, but we would never sell that. But we could establish, we could take today's baseline. Like I said, the only excess water we have right now, we would have to drill another well to get it out of the ground to use them additional shares. But we can't produce that water right now.
which is like $3 million, right? Didn't you say?
At least 3 million, and that's if you hit water. There's been several wells in the last few years that they put out all that money up front, and they get it what they call a dry hole, or you get a hole that has contaminants in it. And naturally, we're not in the best area, especially in the upper level, for having contaminants right now in our area with what's been going on. So it's always a gamble, especially I think for a city that's as small as us. Like if Weber Basin runs 22, 24 wells, they go out and gamble on another one. That's not as big a gamble. But for a city, we have one. If it does something to our existing well or we miss on the water, it's huge for us. I mean, that's a huge capital investment. And like we've said before, our goal has been to let Weber Basin operate them for us, let them take that headache, and then we work out the water on the other end of it, and get the water through them. It's already treated. We don't have to the operation of it. And we don't have to worry about if that well goes down in the middle of summer, what are we going to do for water? It would be back on them.
So if we let a developer in, it's that market share. It's like instead of having, water divided by 9,000, we have water divided by 10,000. And so each user's allotment-ish is less. And so, I mean, it's a big deal to have anybody develop without having any water if it's not covered in water. Because like I said, cash is meaningless, you know, for what we're doing. I wouldn't support it as it's written, but I would support it if we had some sort of baseline where it was we're working in water, not cash.
I'm a little bit lost still on this. So like we would set today's value is where our deal is, and unless we buy additional shares on top of that, we would never do. Or we
Right.
came up with a new source of water.
Right, because you have the numbers per apartment, per house, whatever. And so we say, we're at this line and we're not, until we get water. So somebody has to put off a development for the time that water comes available, then they put off their development. I mean, we're not necessarily putting a moratorium on development. It's just that they need to say, okay, I've got this, you know, subdivision I want to put in. Riverdale needs X amount of water to do that, you know, before they go in there. But cash is easy. That's, you know, that's a hit and run thing, and I think that's what Richmond American Homestead is. They hit and run, and or whoever the paper lot guy was. I probably should.
Well, and at that time, we didn't have an ordinance that required any water, you know,
Yeah.
so they did what was in their best interest, you know.
If I can, I would make a motion to pass this ordinance 949, wasn't it?
949.
But strike the ability to use cash, but it can only be water or in some conjunction. I don't know how we would
We
word
already
it,
have a
but-
motion out there. We didn't. Oh, sorry. I thought somebody already made a motion. I'm on the
Oh, no.
last one.
No. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I did 949. Yeah, we already did that once. Thanks.
This has been
Thanks, Mayor
passed
Pro
already.
Tem.
So without the cash option.
Okay,
So just strike that the city won't sell water, pretty much is what we're striking
Yeah.
out.
I'll second that.
okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Do we need to clarify that at all?
Yes, would you read that back, please? How it was
Who's going to read
Yeah.
that?
Brooks?
Yeah, I mean, we could just state that any references to cash in lieu would be stricken from the current ordinance.
That's what you stated, pretty much.
Okay, and so motion and second is okay with that?
Any words?
Let me just a minute.
And so we have a motion, we have a second, and we will wait just a minute. Any other discussion on the motion?
Sean, what does that do to you with your current?
Okay.
He has to find water to develop.
Questions?
It always is.
Counselor Hilton has a question.
Sorry, I'm asking Sean, what will that do to?
He'll have to find water just like the last ones have, and that'll slow him down for sure, but he'll have to be diligent in finding it.
And when we're flush with water, we can always change.
When we're flush with
No
water,
pun intended.
then we can revisit this.
I
Okay,
just don't see, when I look at all the development going on, I don't think northern Utah's ever gonna see a time when we think we're flush with water ever again.
Even if you look at like 1983, which, sorry, I'm dated, you know, but 1983, I mean, we would say, oh, we're going to give all kinds of water away. Please take our water, because
We thought we had
it's
plenty.
crazy. But
We'll get back there.
whenever we as city council people are looking, we're looking to the future when we bind somebody
I agree
for
with you.
for way down the road. I mean, I'll be dead.
We all
you
trust
guys will
Sean.
be- Yeah.
We don't trust the next guy.
Right.
okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed?
Aye.
That is all ayes, no one opposed, that passes unanimously. Okay, very good. Thank you for your thoughtful deliberations. Water is probably the most important thing we're dealing with right now.
You know, it was late after 1983, which I very much remember. Our governor at the time, Bangeter, put in 8 huge pumps to get the water out of the
West Desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny,
Still
huh?
out there.
Yeah, okay, we've got some pumps we bought, huh? Okay, very good. We will now move on to comments from the city council. Any comments? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Counselor Stevens.
okay, I see this. Are we not what's showing up on YouTube? Is it this camera or that camera?
The normal camera.
Okay, why?
Because, so that you can see Steve and he can see you guys.
I'm sorry.
So
Oh,
that you and
so
Steve
this is a
can see.
one-time thing?
Yeah, just because
Oh.
Mr. Brooks is
Oh,
away. He's
okay,
away.
because he can't see you.
He might be able to if I lean over here. There we go.
Snuggle up.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the left side, it's not my good size. So that's right.
Oh, geez, we'll set it up over here
Okay,
next.
so this one time, all right, never mind.
It's just a one-time thing. Any other comments? Okay, any comments from the city staff?
No, Mayor, I'm not aware of any.
All right. Well, I don't have any comments either, so that means a motion to adjourn to be in order.
So moved.
Go for it.
We have
I'll second.
a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, stand adjourned. Good job, you guys. That was good.
That was good.
Thank you all.
That was very thoughtful.
Good night, and I'll see some of you down